What's going on, guys? So today I'm working on my 350 or 5.7 Vortec engine or 880 casting small block. So however you want to look at it, this is a 350 that was put into my yellow S10. I had some issues with it and we're basically working on it again. So this is actually going from a 350 to a 383 build now. So 5.7 to 6.3 liters. So pretty exciting there. Should make some good power and basically just trying to make it worth all this work that I'm putting into it. So with that being said, I got a Eagle 383 kit. It's pretty much the whole rotating assembly, piston rods, like basically a whole engine. It was pretty reasonably priced, so considering you get everything but pretty much this block. We just went through an engine build on this, so I don't want to get like really caught up in the details, but I'm going to go over some footage and just kind of run through everything that we're doing, mainly the changes that we have to do to go to a 383, because there is some stuff, some kind of weird stuff that you have to do, like cutting little parts of the block so stuff doesn't hit each other, because everything's bigger. Everything's bigger and better now. We got bigger camshaft, we got everything. It should be really badass, honestly. So if you guys know me, I try to do pretty much all this stuff at home. This is a 100% a no machine shop work kind of job. So everything's being done in the garage by me, with some help from my lovely wife, of course. So trying to do all this on a budget. With that being said, one of the biggest controversial things that I'm going to show you is I did do this 30 over job, and I did it here myself. I honed it 30 thousandths over. I used a special tool. I'm going to jump into some clips I have of that, and then we're going to start catching up on the rest of this. Alright, so I got a bunch of stuff set up here just to get this job done. I got some actual machinist tools. I have a actual micrometer. I have a dial bore gauge. And I have a digital caliper. And I got this all calibrated. So a lot of this stuff is off Amazon. So it's not super expensive, but it's not the absolute cheapest. And then I also have this rigid stone hone that I got. So I'm going to try to get some links for you guys for this stuff in the description. But this is going to be the workhorse. This is what's going to do most of the work here. And then I got multiple sets of stones in case I break one or wear them down or whatever. So we can keep on chugging through this because we got 8 cylinders we got to knock out. Okay, so the first thing to actually get started on this is we have to do some measurement stuff. I know it's kind of boring. But before, we gotta know where we're going so we know how to get there. And so basically we need to get our pistons first. These are KBs that came with our 383 kit, and they do say 30 over on them. I'll show you guys what 30 over actually looks like later. But even these are a lot more on spec than like the stock stuff, I'll tell you that much. But there is some differences. So this is where this guy came in handy. These have the nice little dots on them so you can get a good accurate measurement. And there's manufacturing differences, so like some of these are like just slightly bigger, slightly smaller. I weighed everything too, which is kind of a different subject, but I did weigh all these. I weighed the rods so we can kind of weight match stuff together. But the sizes is what we're worried about right now. And I did make a sheet where I wrote all that down so that way I could find out what my smallest guy is, what my biggest guy is, and then there's a sheet that will come with them I gotta get. Yeah, so you have a sheet, and it has a bunch of different things of what are you gonna use this engine for. For me, there's a street towing and a drag racing on, not alcohol, but gasoline. So I'm kind of doing a mix of those two settings, and that is basically just how much clearance we have around these. So you don't want this to swell with the heat because the metal will expand, and you don't want this to basically swell out and run out of room inside there and, you know, bad things might happen. So getting that right, but you want it as small as possible too, so you don't have a bunch of blow by and stuff like that. So it's kind of, it's kind of important. All right, so I'm using gasoline for this. I've used it before on Hoening, and I think it's really the best thing to use. You just got to make sure you got some ventilation. So with this stone hone, I got 2 different sets. So we're starting with an 80, and that's what we're doing our cutting with. That's the most aggressive one. And then there's 180, which is what we'll be doing our pretty much finish on. We're actually going to be doing like a 3-point thing, which I'll get into the last one later. We'll be finishing it with the ball home, basically. But I do have this big drill. I tried using my little battery Makita, and it worked, but having that extra handle, it's just, this thing does take some effort to turn, and you're going to be using it for quite a while. So having that extra comfort and power, and this is a mixing drill, so it's low RPM. So this cheap guy from Harbor Freight worked really good. So once you get the tool all set up, you pretty much just run that thing up and down. You want to be slow and controlled about it, but you're going to be spending some time, especially trying to cut this a full 30 over. I'm getting it close, and then we're going to switch to the other stones. So speaking of stones, I did start with an old set I had. I actually clipped it on the bottom, which is something you got to be really careful about. That I found out pretty quickly, and I got a little crack on one of these, so I'm kind of just seeing what I can do with these, and then just run them from there. I'll swap them out if I have to. So since there's only so much to see here, let's jump into a little bit more of how I'm measuring this and what I'm looking for. Okay, so I got through my first good chunk of grinding here, and I took some measurements, and so I wanted to show you guys. So this is before, and then this is where we're at now, like I said, after a good little session. So it's a little early. I know, because I've done a few of these, that I have a long ways to go, but I wanted to make sure that we're cutting straight. So I made these up to make it easy for you guys to see. This is where we started. And then this is, so we have basically, take my bore gauge here. This is our cylinder, so we're measuring this way and then this way. And then, so we have top, middle, bottom. Now, I found out measuring this, I am actually doing more than what's here, but I wanted to keep it simple. So this still gives you a good picture. It looks like, even though those stones do have some little cracks in them, they are cutting pretty straight. So between this way and this way here, we're within 1/1000th. So we're looking at the last 2 digits. 1,000th, those are 10,000ths. So that's 85, that's 75. So there's only a 10 difference. That's pretty good. Same in the middle. And then it's like 15 at the bottom. But we just started cutting. We have a long ways to go, so that's just fine for now. You can see, yeah, there's how hot the drill is. Obviously, that guy's been working. Oh, it's already, there it is. Yeah. So you gotta watch the heat. It'll get hot and it'll do some weird swelling stuff, and then it'll actually just get tighter. But it's not uniform. It'll just be like tighter in the middle or something. It's really hard to get it to show up on this, right? Okay, so I'm getting really, really close. So right now we just measured, and we're basically, the whole bottom of the cylinder, middle and bottom, is 2/1000ths undersized right now. So even 2 everywhere you look. So really good solid numbers there. And then it's actually just a little tighter at the top. It's actually, the bigger the number, the smaller it is. So we're just a touch 1/1000th smaller on the top. It's actually 25 there, so that's not even that bad. I want to keep this within 1/1000th. From what the information that I found, like what machine shops look for, is they aim for 5/10,000ths. If we can get within 1, that's still considered acceptable. 5 is like race spec, but even they don't get it absolutely perfect. So I think we're sitting really good. So in case you're wondering, I'm using this gas. I rinse it out. I wipe it with the cotton towel, which is just an old t-shirt, and then I spray it again, so the little lint pieces or whatever, because we're measuring such tiny stuff. Okay, so here's our final measurements. So everything is pretty much zeros. There's a lot of zeros here, and zeros is what I want to see. So on the tops, everything's 0. In the middle, everything's 0. Now I did lie, there is one guy here that is 5/10,000ths undersized still. 0 zeros. And then the bottom ended up being just a touch bigger. So pulling that out just that little bit actually corrected pretty much where it was smaller at the top. And so it's only slightly small or bigger on the bottom. So 5/10,000ths pretty much all the way around except for one measurement. Everything's within 5/10,000ths. I don't even need to do a calculation of taper and out of round because it's 5. Everything's 5. So those are really good numbers. And that 0 number, like I said, gives me some wiggle room. So my minimum size for my absolutely smallest piston is this 293. Basically you add 5 to that gets us to 298. So I have that little bit of extra room there, which we still have to put a final crosshatch on it, and we might lose just another 10,000th, so we'll be right on the money. So that comes back to our clearance numbers with the paper that came with our pistons. And like I said, we're doing a mix of the street towing and the drag gasoline, and I just wanted to show you why I was doing that. So street towing gives us 15 to 20 thousandths wall clearance, so really tight, and then a really tight range, only 5 thousandths or 5/10 thousandths range in between there. If we go up to drag gasoline, that actually lets us go all the way up to 45. So basically my target number is that 20 oversized, basically the max of the street towing, and that way if I go over just a hair, I know I'm good because the drag gasoline lets us go up higher, and we probably will drag races, but if I do mess up and I have to go over a little bit, which actually did happen on the other side, I know I'm still within that range, so I don't have to stress about this little tiny stuff, because I'm doing this at home and it's not going to be absolutely perfect. This is what this sucker looks like now, as much as you guys can see that. So I did get a little bit of a crosshatch on there. That's not our final crosshatch though. So this is where I'm doing another step to this. It gets a little complicated and I'm not completely sure if it works, but I'm just trying. What I'm going to do is I tried to get a somewhat of a crosshatch on that, and then I'm going to do a quick pass with that. So 10 strokes with the drill going one way, real quick, in and out, and then put it in reverse and do 10 the other way, and actually get that crosshatch pattern down that we want, but hopefully not erase the deeper scratches as here. So basically you have, I'm trying to do this with one hand, so these are the deep scratches that's in there now, and then we kind of shave off the peaks of those, kind of like that, and so those deep grooves will hold the oil, but on top you still have that finish that you're supposed to have. So in theory that's the best way to do it. I don't have a way to know for sure if that works, but that is what I'm going to try to attempt on all of these, is just a quick hit with that and hopefully get a, 2-in-1 kind of finish. So before I can do that finished crosshatch in there, I do need to add something that's missing here. So on the stock cylinders, they have just this slightest chamfered edge, and that's pretty much just so you can smack the rings in, as far as I know. And going 30 over almost completely erases this. This one actually still has just a little bit. On the other side, I think they pretty much disappeared once I got to that size. So I need to basically add that on there, and the only tool that I can think to do that with is this little carbide bit on an air tool here, pencil grinder. And so I'm just going to add that in by hand. I just need the slightest little edge, nothing too crazy. Also, down at the bottom, there is basically a razor edge down there. And I don't know about you, but I don't want my aluminum piston getting in a knife fight with cast iron down there as it's traveling at like light speed. That needs to be hit too, but not with the burr, just with like a cartridge roll. Just to take off that edge. And then we should be set up for the flex hone, and then that will actually work to come up and down and clean up any little burrs that's left after cutting this. So it kind of, because those little dingleberry things kind of fly out and they're actually rub up here, and they're kind of just hit everything. They'll help take that edge down just a hair more. So this is just to get the rough in, and then that will give us our hatch and clean it up. Okay, so I got that top ring all cleaned up. I didn't do the bottom, and I'm not going to right now. You can kind of see where the factory did it here, where there's a little notch here. I might have to make some of those bigger, and I might just slightly cut the bottom of the cylinder, which means then I'll have to come back with and deburr it and hit it again. So I'm not going to be doing the final crosshatch yet. All right, moment of truth, right? Okay, so this is the one we did. I'm going to set it here just to show you how it doesn't fit. So that's it. That's as far as it'll go in. It won't go in the other way at all, just this part. And then on this side, hopefully get a good grip on this. I don't want to scratch it. And right in. We can move it around. Oh yeah. Everything's good. And I'll go as far down as I can really reach. That's about at the bottom. And just to show you, doesn't really wiggle around too much. I can wiggle it this way, but that's, it's not going to be able to rock that way when it's on the actual rod. So, right on the money. Alright, so now that I got a rinse and repeat on all of those cylinders and all those things are done, I just got to get the last few little pieces off of this block cleaned up so we can get to the next steps on this. And that includes these little deck pins. Now, I kind of knew these were going to be an issue. I've experimented with them. I got this universal slide tool, and it's not quite doing the job. Now, yeah, I know they make a specific tool for this, but it's definitely on the pricey side, and it's only made for these specific pins, so maybe I can use this other one for other stuff. So I made some modifications to it, made some little cuts in the pins, cuts in the pliers, so it actually can get a grip on it, and it actually works pretty darn well after that. Hey. And now that those suckers are out of there, I can work on cleaning up the rest of the block so we can do some assembly for a change. Hit it with some super clean, which is like my favorite new degreaser, and give this sucker a nice little hose down. Ooh, buddy, I got one in the hole. So I skipped forward a little bit, and I have the crank and the rod and, well, one rod and piston put together and put in, obviously. So I also have my camshaft sitting in there, literally just sitting in there because I don't have my cat back there yet. So I got a little zip tie so he don't run away from me. But I got some of that together and did some test fitting just so I can start to figure out this clearance thing, which I'm going to show you here as we spin it around, what might hit, what shouldn't hit. But the biggest thing right here was dropping this piston in and seeing that it fit and seeing it in the motor. Now, sure, we've been here before, but this time is a little bit more exciting because I made these holes. So the fact that like these did not fit before, and from the looks of it, we have a pretty nice tight piston wall fit. So I am gonna try to clean this deck up if I didn't already mention it. I have a really straight piece of wood with some handles and some floor sandpaper. I'm gonna do some really home remedy here, and I don't really expect to take much material off, but I do want to clean up just some of this corrosion and just clean it up. So if I can fix anything, I will, but I don't expect much out of that. So this is a big step here. Okay, so I just got done with, it'd be this side of the block with test fitting our clearances and checking the deck and that stuff. I just dropped the piston in the first hole on the other side here, and I wanted to show you guys because the other side, tons of room, didn't have to touch a thing, don't have to worry about touching a thing, everything looks a-okay. This side, on the other hand, right off the bat, let me give you a little look here, and we're looking right at this bolt in the side of the block. You can tell that sucker is getting pretty close right there. So let me bring this around, and you can also see I got that cam lobe sticking up because that's another possibility of something making contact, and it's gonna be hard to see this on the camera. Honestly, it's almost impossible for me to see it, period. But if you can see in there, it's very close. I can spin the camera around, it doesn't hit. I can move the crank back and forth right over there, like right between the two, and nothing's hitting. So I think I'm good on the cam. I'm gonna try to look at that a little closer, but it's just something to keep in mind. That's why I have to do this and make sure all these clearances are right, because just because, you know, when I had the cylinder in this hole and everything had tons of room around it, doesn't mean that, you know, maybe this hole back here is gonna be fine. Okay, so I got numbers on top of numbers on top of numbers for this guy. I got this notebook. This sucker is almost completely wasted on everything we've done to this block. So I got pretty much all of my blueprinting done. I've got all the numbers for the cylinders, the pistons, the rods. I got the weights. I got they're all put together over there, and so we can figure out what's going where, why is it going there. I got my deck stuff figured out, and then obviously just did to make sure I didn't have any extra tall or short pistons. I threw everything in that same hole and basically did some like controlled experiments. So now that I'm done measuring until my eyes bleed, I can actually start doing something with this block now. I have the numbers, so I know what to do. I do need to figure out how I'm going to measure this deck, because I need to come and try to sand this so I'm not as close to zero deck as it looked like I was at first. I am like, you know, 20, thousandths down in the hole, like 15 on the other side on average. The numbers bounce around a little bit, but so I need to, if I can, I'm going to try to sand this down, but worst case scenario, if I can just get this cleaned up and then maybe run some thinner head gaskets, and maybe in a weird situation where I have maybe a little bit thicker one on one side and try to balance this out. I'm not sure yet. We'll see how it goes. So I can get into that. I can start clearancing where the rods and stuff were getting really close to hitting stuff, but nothing hit anything anywhere. It's just really, really close in a couple spots. So I think that's going to do it for right now. So this is a whole breathing point for me. So I'm going to move on from there. I got to take this back apart, get this crank camshaft, bust it all down, do that stuff, clean it up, and then maybe we can put it together for good. So that's exciting. We're getting close. But that's all I got for now. So thanks for hanging out, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.